format and ground rules for this debate. And before we get started here, I also wanted to ask the audience here that we can just follow some basic rules of civility. We're here to hear each candidate's view. I ask that you be respectful and listen, and also keep responses like clapping, cheering to a minimum, so we have as much time as possible to hear from the candidates. Before we got up here, we had a coin toss that determined the order of who will be answering our first question and who will be giving our closing statement. So we will get started here. Our format is we will ask a question. The first respondent gets 2 minutes, followed by 2 minutes for the next person, followed by a minute for rebuttal, and then we as moderators can ask follow-ups of either or both candidates after that. They'll have a minute to respond there. We have a time moderator, Megan Helton. She'll run a timer that will flash for the candidates when they have 30 seconds left and when time is expired. So we'll go back and forth with that format until about 7:40, then save some time for audience questions. Candidates get a minute to respond to those, and we'll have closing statements. So we will get started with our first question from Jovan. Can
you speak up, please?
Yes, sorry, I am notoriously quiet.
Hello? Oh, all right. Right on. All right. Our first question. Helena's current city manager is retiring at the end of this year. Do you think the next city manager should be selected now or when a new mayor and commission are seated, and why? What skills do you want to make sure the new city manager brings to the job, especially given Helena's weak mayor system?
I believe I'm the first one to answer. Helena, thank you very much for showing up tonight. We've got a decision to make. In the beginning of the next year, you'll have a new mayor, a new commission, and a new city manager. We need to be clear on what we're looking for in that city manager. We need your input. I believe that it's not just a decision that should be made in a vacuum. I believe it should be with you. I believe it should be our people should have a chance to have a input on it, as well as our directors at the city, as well as the new mayor and the new commission. I would like to see us have some clear steps for more engagement with the public, especially with the holiday season coming up. I think that would be helpful as well. We noted in the AARP survey that just came out that 41% of people feel that they're not being heard by the city government, that we're not listening. I believe that it's incumbent upon us to involve you in that process when we pick a new city manager, to hope that we can improve the connection that we have with you and build trust. That's something that I'm committed to. It is a big decision. The city manager is a very big decision, and I think we're going to need you at the helm as well as the Helena Citizens Council. The HCC is made up of elected officials that represent your neighborhoods. These are individuals that I think need to be a part of that conversation because they can be also held accountable. I don't think we need to rush this. However, it has been said that there's going to be some stalling. I don't believe that we're stalling. I believe that we're being thorough. I think we need to be thoughtful about this, and that if we do have some good candidates, I think that'd be great. I would invite you to apply if you feel so inclined. This is a big decision that we need to make together as a community, and I look forward to having that conversation. Thank you.
Turnout. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here tonight. You know, the city had gone through a couple city manager recruitment processes over the last, really starting in 2018, and a couple of them did not go so well. And so 3 years ago, after the resignation of our past city manager before Tim Burton, we went through a process called the City Manager Recruitment Assessment. And that was an opportunity for us to evaluate what went right and what went wrong in the 3 previous city manager recruitment processes. What we found was that we needed to have staff input, we needed to have community input, and we needed to be really clear about the priorities that we wanted the next city manager to be focusing on. And so we developed a template that could be pulled off the shelf at any point if a city manager retired, resigned, or got hit by a bus. Because the city manager is so critical in the operations of how the city actually functions. When Tim Burton put in his retirement, we got to pull that template off the shelf. It was an opportunity for us to utilize a process that we vetted and had consensus from the entire commission to move forward with. So far, the city manager post the opening has been posted, and we are taking applications now. One of the things that I think is critically important in our next city manager to get to the skills part of the question is that it's someone who has to understand the operations of the city and has to understand how to interact with the public. And so it's a really unique balance in being able to make sure the city can function with our 370 full-time employees and interact with the 35,000 people, plus all of our community partners, in a really positive way.
I believe Andy will rebuttal.
Like I said before, this is the most important job and the most important position that we get to hire as a commission. We've gone through this process before in the past. We've had somewhat of a revolving door at the city manager position. I think it's important that if we be thorough and we are thoughtful in this, that we don't have to install that revolving door again. I think that I've really enjoyed the working with Tim and learning from him. I actually worked with him he was our chief of staff under Governor Bullock when I worked for him doing economic development. I appreciate the work and the wisdom that he brings, and I hope that we can have a thoughtful conversation so we get someone that can at least meet that bar that Tim has set that is really high. Again, I think we need to have more input because it is the most critical job in the city government. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your answers. I would like to ask one follow-up from you guys. And if you could please respond with a yes or no answer. Again, do you think that the next city manager should be selected now or when a new mayor and commissioner are seated? Yes or no, please.
I think it should, do you want me to go first? Okay. I think the city manager, the best candidate should be, selected from the pool of applicants that we get, and if we don't have good applicants, we should go back out again.
I believe we should have input from the people of Helena and our directors as well as the new mayor and new commission.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next question, and Emily, you will be answering this one first. So both of you have identified Helena's transportation infrastructure as something in need of improvement. So understanding that our mayor represents people with diverse needs from robust roads to connected sidewalks, if you could pick one transportation infrastructure project to do that you think is our city's most immediate need, what would that be and how would you address it? And Emily, 2 minutes.
So I'm going to answer this with one of the things that we have underway right now that I think is something that can be delivered in the next 5 to 6 years, and that is the Montana Avenue rail crossing. Sure. Better? Okay. That's the Montana Avenue rail crossing. This is a project that has been on the books for literally decades. It is an intersection that is often very unsafe, and right now we have no connection for the Centennial Trail west to east across Montana. The city did go out to get a federal grant to help pay for this crossing, and right now we are in the middle of doing the engineering and planning to be able to get this built. This was one of those grants that would truly be a generational impact for this community. You think about the time that people waste sitting at the train, trying to get to work on time, trying to get to school on time. And really having no safe way to cross in terms of pedestrian access. I wanted to get this project done so badly that I fought to get on the National League of Cities Transportation and Infrastructure Committee because it was one of our grants that was stalled out by the federal government. I had the opportunity in March to travel to Washington, D.C. and meet with the White House Intergovernmental Affairs Liaison, where I got to pitch what this project was and why it was so critically important to our community, and within days the approval for reinstating the grant came through. And that is one of those things that takes you have to be dogged in ensuring that you are getting those funds to get it done. So I would say that is one of those large infrastructure projects that will be tens of millions of dollars, and it is critical that we are staying on it so that we keep the money and can get the project completed.
You for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Well, we're a growing community, and with that, we're going to need transportation. And I believe that in addition to Montana Avenue, I think we need to look at Custer Avenue. We hear it constantly from parents who are dropping their kids off at Four Georgians. We see folks that are lined up for blocks, if not miles, leaving the fairgrounds or leaving football games and softball games or leaving Capitol High. I think we need to continue pursuing that with the county and the state of Montana Department of Transportation, because it is a state road. It is a state-maintained road. In addition to that, there's the South Hills or the South Exit interchange that will connect the southern exit of Helena down to Blue Cross Blue Shield, opening up 700 acres worth of land that could be used for housing, commercial, industrial, parks, trails, etc. I'm excited for that because it's going to grow Helena in a responsible way. I think it's one of our most important corridors and that's actually where the epicenter of growth is going to happen, not just in Helena, but in our county. It was mentioned about the Montana Avenue crossing. That money through the BUILD grant, which used to be known as RAISE grant, was doged. The federal government held back that money. I reached out to both our U.S. senators and their staff. They met in my office, and then I got a call from our U.S. representative who sat down in my office and said, "What can we do?" And I said, "We need that money back." Within weeks, we were able to get that back. I'm not taking credit. We had a lot of folks that pushed really hard on our staff to get that money back. And that's how we get stuff done, is that we work together and we listen to each other and we pull our partners together. And that's why it's incumbent upon us to work with not just the city, staff, the county, our state partners, as well as our federal partners. Thank you.
Emily, 1 minute rebuttal for you.
Sure. So I'd love to jump in on Custer Avenue. I think it is a project that has been needed for quite some time. This is where it is so important that our next mayor understand the details of how projects work. The city of Helena and Lewis and Clark County have been putting away what are called our urban funds every single year for the past 10 years. We now have $10 million in that fund, and they are earmarked for Custer Avenue. The problem is, to complete Custer Avenue, the estimate is $27 million. MDT came to the city and asked for a contract that said that we would pay for any overages for the completion of Custer Avenue. That means that our taxpayers in the city of Helena would be on the hook for $17 million. In order to address this, I've been working as chair of our Metropolitan Planning Organization to work with MDT to apply for a federal grant to help complete Custer. Understanding these details are what are going to ensure that the city of Helena is not on the hook for these large projects.
That follows a little bit on the rebuttal that I wanted to direct to both of you, is understanding that projects of this scale often take a lot of time. The cost grows. We've seen the cost of doing just about anything construction-wise balloon pretty dramatically. I'd like each of you to address if there are enough funds available to achieve the project that you identified you want to do, and if not, to what you were talking about, how you would capture those remaining funds. Andy, a minute to you.
You know, we've got quite a bit of opportunity out here for whether it's your transportation question. We've got a cost share. There's a lot of times where we rely on federal government federal grants, et cetera, such as the RAISE grant, where we've received money. Or for the last several years where we worked with the federal government to receive the American Rescue Plan Act money that we invested into our city so that we didn't have to raise rates, and as well as we put and invested back into our community. There are projects that I'd like to see, whether it is Custer, Montana Avenue, or the South Hills interchange. It's going to take partnerships, and it's going to take multi-funding, whether it's from the state, the feds, or us through our general fund. I think that's important to be able to put that together, because we can't pay for it all when it comes to a $27 million project, and we're still waiting on the state to approve it. Again, if we're waiting on things, we will eventually have to continue fighting for it, or we're going to have to move on.
Emily, 1 minute to you, and can you move the mic a little closer?
Is that better? Okay. This is the most important part, and I think that it's one of the biggest frustrations, because we often have not had commissions that have necessarily been super active in pursuing additional dollars for the city of Helena. We have a real opportunity through our partnership with the National League of Cities to advocate for direct funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation straight to locals. Right now, that funnels through the Montana Department of Transportation. That often means that a lot of the projects that we want to get done have a percentage taken off the top, which means less money going to our roads and streets infrastructure. So that's one of the things that I've really been focusing in my role at the National League of Cities, is pushing the federal government to give money directly to locals, so that we can complete some of these major projects that are $17, $25, $30 million.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Next question. Addressing needs like infrastructure or improving city services, which you both have advocated for, takes money. How comfortable are you raising property taxes or city fees to pay for those services? And I believe Andy.
Yeah, thank you, Javon. I know we've seen our water bills go up, unfortunately, but we haven't raised rates in years. However, we need to be able to pay for particular types of infrastructure. I am not comfortable, to answer your question, I am not comfortable with raising property taxes. And again, it says in our charter that that's not the role of the city unless we go to you for a bond or a levy, like we did for the fire station and we did for firefighters last year. I am not comfortable. It's not easy to raise rates. However, there are times that we have to pay for certain things, but we try to be mindful of it, so we do it incrementally and we don't hit you with one fee in 5 years, where if we don't raise the rates over a span of years, then all of a sudden you get hit with a bill where your bill went up $5 instead of doing it $1 a year. I think that's important because we all live here. We live in this community. We're your friends, we're your neighbors. We pay those same water bills, those same bills that you do. And so we're mindful of that. We're mindful of what's happening at the national level. We're mindful of what's happening with tariffs and prices going up. And so that I don't necessarily feel comfortable raising rates, but we have before in the past, because we have to pay for the services when we live in a city for water, sewer, roads, trash removal, etc. It's a necessary part of living in the city. Unfortunately, sometimes it's higher than we like. But with that, thank you.
So I think this is one of those things that really requires the city and the commission to be thoughtful about how we are budgeting over multiple years. In the last couple of years, we now have what's called a capital improvement plan for every single city department. That had not always been the case, and that means that we look at all of the things that we own and we have to maintain and we have to provide for the community, and how are we going to keep up with their maintenance over the years. That takes thoughtful budgeting every single year. It means that you have to be putting money away for very large projects every single year. So I think part of it is budgeting appropriately, and it's something that I have been passionate about and really a champion of since I got on the commission, is having a budget that is fiscally responsible and consistently putting money away for some of these larger projects. The other piece that I would add is that right now, the Department of Revenue has not assessed all of the new development in Helena for a lot of different reasons. Most of it is staffing at DOR, but that means that the people who live in Helena right now are subsidizing the new development in our community, the services that are being provided. So there are actual properties in Helena that we are providing solid waste to, but DOR still has them listed as vacant in their records. We need to demand that DOR is keeping up with calculating newly taxable value, because the rest of Helena then subsidizes those services. And so I think it is critical that before we ever think about raising rates and taxes, particularly to pay for infrastructure, we are getting the money that is supposed to be, under law, provided to the city through the state immediately.
It was said that, oh goodness, thank you. Apologize to the folks up front. That's why I go talk to folks. That's why I hear from you. and I hear get outside of City Hall and reach out and listen to you. I think one of the ideas that I hear from folks often and what I think about when we vote is that instead of raising rates, we need to look at cutting costs. And that's something I'm committed to, is to look at ways we can be more effective and efficient. Luckily, we've got a great team at the city that are looking at ways, and they too live here, where they look at ways to be able to cut costs and be more effective and efficient. And that's something I'd continue to promote as mayor of Helena.
I have one follow-up for each of you, if for a minute each. In terms of cutting, are there places that you would identify to cut within the city's existing budget now, and what would those be? And Emily, you first for 1 minute.
Sure. So, to be perfectly honest, if you spend time going through our city budget, there are areas where we can be more efficient. And I think one of those areas is through technological advancements. One of the things that I have really tried to champion since getting on the commission is modernizing the way we do things. So, for example, now we are in the process of digitizing all of our records, so they will be available not just to the public at a keyword search, but also to staff. So that means staff is spending less time having to research particular issues, find plans, look for permits, etc. I truly believe that we need to start thinking about how to find flexibility in our budget, and I think that means thinking about the general fund. I have lots of ideas about how to do that, but we run a pretty slim operation at the city right now because we have to with the way the state structures local government funding. And the only flexibility that really exists is in the general fund.
In terms of cost cutting, and I'm sure this is going to be a question a little bit later, is about parking. Parking is an issue that affects everyone in town. We've seen an increase in staff as well as investments in technology. And we have debt to pay off in that, and I'll talk more about that if that question does come up, is that when we pay off that debt, I don't think we should do it on the backs of our seniors, our veterans, and our disabled. And that's something where, yes, we've hired more staff to do enforcement, but I think we need to look at, do we really need to hire more to do enforcement for the city? I think we need to look at every department, and that's something I'm committed to as mayor. And again, mayor's just one person. There's 4 other people on the commission, and then there's going to be a city manager. So these decisions will have to be made together.
Okay, for our next question. At a recent candidate forum, both of you said that the city should push for federal agents to be unmasked when taking part in local law enforcement actions. I'd like for each of you to elaborate on why you support that and explain what actual tangible steps you would make to make that stance be known to federal counterparts. And Emily, first to you with 2 minutes.
Sure. So I think one of the difficult things is that because of the way that our system of government works, we do not have any way to mandate that a federal officer do anything, which is very frustrating, to be perfectly honest. However, this is exactly where having good partnerships comes into play. And I think that where we can push for something like this is through our partnerships with the federal government, emphasizing why this kind of action, being masked, not identifying yourself, produces fear in the community, uncertainty, really not a place that people feel safe. And so in practical terms, I think the way that the local government can be most impactful is by leaning on federal partnerships that we have been developing over the decades and emphasizing why you make our community less safe and less welcoming when you are unwilling to follow due process, follow the law. I do think there's probably going to be a number of lawsuits around the country that start to unfold in terms of the way immigration enforcement has been carried out, but it underscores why it's so important that we have good partnerships so that you can have those hard conversations when needed, and I think right now is a good example.
Andy, to you?
Yeah, great question. Well, I don't agree with masked officers or ICE agents or Border Patrol. I just think that I take pride in our police department that wears a badge, has their name, and is willing to work in the public. I don't agree with masked officers, and nor do I do not condone and I don't consent, and I think there are ways that the city can fight back, as well as there are some legal options that we can look at. We do not have a 287G agreement, however, the state does, unfortunately. You know, we do have partnerships at the federal level, but I think there might be some legal options. Again, I'm not an attorney, but there are some legal options we can look at, as well as some other communities and cities within the United States where we can look for some guidance. I don't agree with folks wearing a mask. What happened to that gentleman, Christopher Martinez Marvan, was unfortunate. And I hate to see that in our community. Luckily, it doesn't happen often, but it's happening across the United States. And we need to look out for each other. And if that's my role. I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the state of Montana, as well as the charter of the city of Helena. I work for you, and we work for you. And our officers swore that oath as well. And so with that, thank you very much.
Emily, 1 minute rebuttal.
Sure. So one of the things I just like to take the opportunity to maybe expand upon is right now the Helena Police Department has a lot on its plate, and this has been an issue that has really included the police department because of immigration enforcement trying to bring local police departments in. I've been really proud of the way that our department has, responded to the community. They put together frequently asked questions and really gave the entire commission an understanding about places where we can and can't participate. But one of the things that I think is most important is that it is not the role of local government to be involved in immigration enforcement. And I think that we're fortunate to have a commission as a whole that has continued to say, with the support of the police department, that we are not interested in being involved in immigration enforcement. We already have enough on our plate as it is.
One follow-up to that, and to your point on where the commission does and doesn't have a role, the commission has heard a lot of concerns from residents. How do you feel like the commission has heard those concerns, acted upon them, and what would you like to see change about those interactions, or a new mayor coming in? How would you like to see them interact with the citizens coming to the commission, raising their concern? And Andy, 1 minute to you, and then to you, Emily.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate when there's any public involvement, like tonight, or city commission meetings, and I've seen over the last 3.5 years that I've been on this, or three years and some months on the city commission, more improved involvement of the public. I do think that we need to change the time of our meetings. Monday nights at 6 works for some. Wednesday nights at 4 o'clock, some people are still at work, some people are going to work. Some people are taking their kids to extracurricular activities or picking their kid up from childcare. I think that's one way that we can meet the demand, or at least meet folks where they're at. I think we need to make it easier for folks to offer public comment. I do appreciate the public comment form that we do have. However, I think we can make that a little bit easier. The public comment process is kind of cumbersome. It's just a comment where we can't respond, and it's not a debate. But I do appreciate the folks who do come to those meetings, and I do talk to them after the meeting.
Emily, to you.
Yeah, to answer your follow-up question, one of the things that I think that has been really wonderful to see is that we have had a lot of folks who have come. There's a list of demands, some of which we have been able to confirm that we are not participating in immigration enforcement. But I think the larger issue is that it sets a record and it creates a public record that is important, that Helena is at the forefront. And when you think about everything that's happening right now, Congress had a bill in front of it 1.5 years ago that could have addressed the immigration crisis in this country. And it is I really hope that our congressional delegation is paying attention when we do have 5, 10, 15 people coming to Helena City Commission meetings, that they understand that folks in Helena are paying attention, and that when they should be getting on it in terms of addressing the immigration crisis that currently exists.
Thank you. Next question. It's taken more and more money to be able to afford to live in Helena. What are your specific plans to address that through policies and that the city can enact in your first term as mayor? If you run for re-election in 4 years, what can you point to as a success in making Helena a place we can all afford to live?
Who's first? Is that me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, like I said earlier, things are getting more and more expensive, whether it's what's happening in Washington, D.C., causing the stock markets to fluctuate, causing commodity prices to go up, tariffs, adding additional price. I think we need to do everything we can to make everything effective and efficient at the city level. We need to make sure that where permits don't go up in price. If they do, they need to be reasonable. And that's something that it's been pointed out that I voted against. I voted against permit increases. And these are ways that I think that the city, we look at whether it's increasing or decreasing the price of a parking ticket. I think that's something we need to look at. I've been in meetings with the Parking Advisory Council, where they've worked with our Transportation Systems Department, and it was advocated for an increase in parking fees. I don't think that's something that we should do. I don't think we should be a city of plans and fees. I think we need to look at every department that we have, whether it's water, sewer, trash, recycling, et cetera, that we need to find ways to cut costs, as well as find ways to listen more to you and have more public involvement so that you folks have a say. And that's where I would like to see it. Thank you.
So in terms of affordability and helping families, housing is the most expensive in most expensive thing in every person's budget. And one of the things that I think that the city can be doing to help alleviate some of that stress, and something that I would like to see after elected in 4 years, is that we open up the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to help finance the development of accessory dwelling units, particularly for seniors and retired folks in our community. One of the things that we are seeing in this market is that retired folks have gotten to the point where they are ready to downsize. They live in a 3-4 bedroom house, and the value of that house is exactly the same as a townhouse or a condo that they'd like to downsize to. And that produces a really untenable economic issue for them. The point is to sell your house, put the money away, and be able to have that in your retirement savings for the next 20 years. Because we have condos and townhomes that are very, very expensive in this community, if we started investing in creating financing mechanisms for seniors and the retired community to develop ADUs in their backyard, that allows them to rent out their home or sell it. And I think those are some of the creative solutions that we can do right now to alleviate some of the stresses, especially when we consider that housing is the most expensive thing in most households. The other thing that I would like to see us be investing in is giving financing to turn your house into a duplex. So if you've gotten to the point where you only need 1 bedroom out of those 3, how do we help you turn your home into a duplex so that you can then rent out your basement or upstairs to a couple that's just getting on their feet?
Well, housing is the most expensive as well as the most pertinent problem that we face right now. It's top of mind for many folks that I talk to. When I go out and talk to folks in public, this is what I hear about their rent going up, about the price of their mortgage, and their property taxes being too expensive. Prices are up nearly 45% since 2019. And that's no joke. We've seen it. We've seen it in our property taxes. We've seen it in our bills. That's why I developed a plan, you've read about it, called Build Helena. We need to build more dense and diverse housing, whether it's an ADU or a CLT, a community land trust. I think accessory dwelling units are important. We need to uncomplicate the process and make it easier to apply for. Invest in infrastructure, listen to local partners, as well as diversify our funding. That Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we've invested it very well as a city, but we need to make it easier to apply for. We need to expand its use, and we need to look at the city needs to invest more into that. Currently, it's about $100,000 a year. I think we need to do more. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Emily, you'll take this one first. At another recent forum, an audience member asked what the city could do to help invest in downtown Helena's economy, considering it owns a large portion of existing properties downtown. What's your opinion on selling underutilized or outdated city property as a means to incentivize development in the downtown core? And if that's something you want to do, talk to us about the type of development you would like to see. And Emily, to you, 2 minutes.
Sure. So I think it's worth having a conversation about what those properties actually are. So we all know we have the City County building. We also own the Chamber building. We have the Law and Justice Center, Grand Street, and the Rocky Mountain Development Council's Neighborhood Center. I think it's really important that we're thoughtful about properties that we are selling and to who. I don't see that it would be a benefit to our community to force Rocky Mountain Development Council out of the Neighborhood Center or Grand Street out of Grand Street. It has to be there. But I do think there's opportunity on some of the other buildings that maybe are less utilized and interested in moving. One of the ways that I think that we can be more impactful in producing economic development in downtown is being creative with our tax increment financing district and the urban renewal area fund. The urban renewal area is called the URA. It has just started being refunded. It was actually the URA that existed during urban renewal almost 50 years ago. And that fund went to provide the bond that created the Great Northern Town Center. The bond has matured after 20 years and is now being paid back. And so that means that we are close to $300,000 in that fund right now. There are a lot of projects that can be utilized for. One of them that I would advocate for is the resurfacing and redevelopment of the walking mall. There are a lot of places around the walking mall that can be quite treacherous, especially if you are not super mobile. The other thing that I would like to see is us really leaning into our historic and heritage tourism opportunities, particularly with the opening of the museum. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to be making smart investments through both the TIF and the URA in the coming months.
Andy, to you, 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I am open to it. I think we need to identify those properties and see what state they're in, and then look at our options. I have a history of economic development. I worked for Governor Bullock, hi Steve, for 5 years doing economic development. I built partnerships, as well as ever since I've been on the City Commission, I've built partnerships with the Chamber of Commerce, with Visit Helena, with the Business Improvement District. And we meet weekly down at the Chamber. We talk over lunch on a Monday about what's happening. I think that's something that I'm really good at, is investing in those opportunities with those partnerships to help us identify those buildings, because they can do some outreach and say, is there anybody interested in these buildings? And whether it's a business, an organization, etc. It was mentioned the TIF district, the tax increment finance district for downtown, the railroad district, and the mall have all been combined into one pot. But during the pandemic, I was in charge of the downtown TIF district. We invested every dollar we had, or at least we recommended to the City Commission that we need to invest every single dollar, whether it's the Placer Hotel to do preservation on the historic windows that they have. We recommended to the City Commission at that time that we invest in the fire tower. And that is something that I think that we need to do, is continue to look at reinvesting into this walking mall we have behind us. I think that's a gem that other cities look at and wish they had. And that's something I think that we need to continue investing in, because if we do those things, it will show that Helena is open for business. And I'll just finish with that.
Emily, to you for a minute.
Sure, yeah. So I think I just want to make an important clarification that all of the TIF dollars are not in one pot now. Downtown TIF stays with downtown TIF, Railroad TIF stays with Railroad TIF, and the Capitol Hill Mall TIF stays with that. What has been combined is the advisory board, which now includes 3 members from each of those areas. It also includes now a member of the school board and the county. One of the ways that I think that we need to be thinking a little bit more creatively is that the whole purpose of tax increment financing is to eliminate blight. So one of the things that we did a few years ago was help fund the environmental remediation of what is now the Bell Hotel. It's that property that was next to Starbucks, falling down for a very long time. It is now going to be opening a beautiful boutique hotel where we can invite visitors from around the community. And that is what the impact of TIF really can be.
So one follow-up for both of you. You talk a lot about projects, buildings downtown, the museum coming in, all of these things that would draw people in. Parking downtown, something we talk about a lot in this community. Want you guys to each to address how you would make it so that people can come to downtown and enjoy these spaces, whether you're trying to walk here, if you live nearby, what the connectivity for sidewalks is, or if you need a place to park, how you would make that something that downtown is an attractive place to come and spend time. And Andy, 1 minute, starting with you, then to Emily.
You bet. Not a day goes by that I don't hear about parking, whether it's in person or if it's online. I've brought together businesses to be able to, businesses, building owners, tenants that live downtown to help find solutions. 6th Avenue is going to be a critical access point for downtown. Parking should not be punishing. I've talked to many business owners that feel that they're being punished by the parking, they're losing business, and people are looking elsewhere. And I think if we lose our businesses downtown to our sister city in East Helena, I think that's something that, I think that's awful. So again, cost-cutting measures, working with our partners that do tourism, that do business development, economic development, like MBAC, the Chamber, Visit Helena, the Business Improvement District, and using those partnerships. And that's something I've done, not since I've run for mayor, but I've done it since day one, since I've been on the commission, is building those partnerships to be able to make, to strengthen partnerships as well as make us aware of the need of downtown Helena.
That's Tim. Emily, 1 minute to you.
Sure. So I'm actually going to talk about connectivity. One of the very cool things about Helena is that one of the first, I would say, kind of sidewalks we had was actually a boardwalk that went from the 6th Ward to downtown, up to the Capitol, and then back to the 6th Ward. That triangle is truly the heartbeat of much of the connectivity within the community. Last year, the city adopted what was called a multimodal transportation plan, and it outlined a series of investments that the city could make to make that triangle safer for folks to travel through. As mayor, I would like to see us start making some much more specific investments in that plan so that we can have folks traversing that area safely. One of the ways that we've done that is investing in additional rapid flashing beacons, but I think that in terms of making it truly flow between the three areas,
That's time.
we should invest in it.
Both of you have day jobs with public policy organizations that sometimes have interests that intersect with city issues. Emily with the Montana School Boards Association and Andy with the Montana Building Industry Association. How have you mitigated potential conflicts of interest between your day job and your role on the commission, and what additional steps would you take to do so as mayor? Andy, you're first.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this up. I work across town. I work a day job. I started about a year and a half ago, and I work for the Montana Building Industry Association, where I'm their executive director. I work for a board. It's a nonprofit that advocates for housing. I have a board of about 35 people. I notified my president of the board this past January, that I was looking at running for mayor, and I wanted to get the go-ahead. They are also, this group was looking at making donations to candidates across the state that were running for various offices, and I said I'd like to be removed from consideration because I didn't want there to be a conflict of interest. I work for about 1,625 members across the state. There is a Helena Building Industry Association, and then there's a Montana Building Industry Association, and then there's a national. There are times that I make my board not very happy. There are times when I probably don't make you happy. But when I make my vote, you're top of mind, because I swore an oath to work for the people of Helena. And I'm proud of that fact. I don't confer with my board. I don't confer with my members. I don't coordinate votes. I listen to you, and that's how I vote. And I work for you, and I'm very proud of that fact. And that's why I want to run for mayor, and that's why I'm running for mayor, is because I enjoy working for you and having you as my bosses. I'd rather have 35,000 people be my boss. And so I take conflict of interest very seriously. And I do everything I can. I work 8 to 5, and then at 5 o'clock, I can do city stuff. When I'm at the city, I don't do anything else. I don't have other devices. I do my work, and that's what I do.
Emily, it's you.
The question was about how do we mitigate it and address it? Sure. So I work for the Montana School Boards Association, and I am so fortunate to still be in education. This is actually something that has come up before. So I'm fortunate that we don't really have a lot of issues in terms of education that come to the City Commission. There's been one time where it has, and it was when the City Commission was considering the school resource officer contract with the City of Helena. Because Helena Public Schools is a member of the Montana School Boards Association, I talked to my boss and said, this is coming up, how do you think I should handle it? They said, well, we're not advising Helena Public Schools on this SRO contract, but I think it would be wise to ensure that you are disclosing this. Talk to the city attorney, same thing. So at the beginning of every single SRO conversation, I would start by saying, I work for the Montana School Boards Association. Helena Public Schools is a member of MTSBA. MTSBA is not advising Helena Public Schools on the SRO contract, but I want the public to know that that is my job, and I wanted it to be disclosed. City attorney advised that I did not need to recuse myself because I was not gaining any benefit or advising on that contract. I also have signed a memorandum of understanding with my employer to create a firewall between those things. So if anyone knows me, they'll know that during the day I am doing MTSBA work, and when I take my lunch hour, anytime between 11 and 2 o'clock, that is when I will call people back that have called me and left me messages for city business or meet for coffee or go to lunch, anything that might be coming up. And that's how I ensure that I keep that firewall in existence and that I'm always disclosing it to the public where there could be an issue.
Andy, do you for 1 minute?
Yeah, sure, you bet. Well, it was brought up with regards to a vote, and we'll just be honest about it. And after that vote, I was asked, do you think there was a conflict of interest? I walked over and I talked to the city attorney and the city manager. I said, do you think that there was a conflict of interest? And both of them said no. I then was asked, well, did you change the outcome of the vote? I did not. Did you make any money off of this? No. Did you coordinate with any of the folks that were here tonight? Not at all. I had no clue they were going to be here. However, when mayor, I'm happy to, or today, I'm happy to reveal if there is any conflict of interest and recuse myself from any vote. I have no problem with that. I think that's important that we remain transparent, and that's another conversation I think we're going to have is about transparency. I think that's important. I think you all deserve that. Thank you.
Yeah, one follow-up. As mayor, how would you guys increase transparency of the city government? Emily.
Sure. So one of the things that I think we've come a really long way at this city. When I first got on the city commission, we would have a consent agenda and it would include claims. And we never had any idea what was included in claims because we did not get the detail of what all those checks included. And so that was one of the first things I asked for when I got on the commission in 2020 was for all of the claims to be included in our agenda packet so the commission could understand what we were paying for and the public could understand what we're paying for. One of the other ways that I think as mayor, I would like to improve transparency, and I think it really comes down to engagement and communication, is holding regular town halls with the community in a location that is low-key, casual, and gives people the opportunity to really ask questions and have a back and forth that you don't always get to experience when you're in chambers at a city commission meeting.
So as it's been noted, I like to attend things. I like to go to events. I'm a man about town, so it says. And, well, it's because I like to hear from you. I know that you can't make a meeting on a 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, or you can't attend our special meeting that we had last night at 5:30. That's why I go to you. I know that not everybody can make the meetings. Our jobs are more than just meetings and agenda. We represent you at the city. And I need to hear from you, and that's why, whether it's at Hometown Helena or Alive at 5, that's why I attend those things. But I think we need to be especially transparent when it comes to big decisions like hiring a city manager. And that's why I want to see more involvement from key stakeholders, our Helena Citizens Council, and you. I also want to see us do more like we did for Helena Forward and for the upcoming MPO meetings, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, is having open houses, which have been proven to work, that we've used and employed in these last couple of weeks. And then I want to see us streamline our meetings and broadcast them on Helena Civic TV.
Okay, our next question will go to you, Emily, first. The city has reduced the effectiveness of the city commission's advisory boards. Do you support that change? And if not, how would you remedy that situation? And 2 minutes for you, Emily.
Sure. So I think I think the question has reduced effectiveness. I would actually argue that right now the city commission is better able to address the needs of citizen advisory boards than before. And that is because we've undergone a process that was developed to ensure that we have consistent bylaws across all the advisory committees, and that each advisory committee gets an opportunity to present items before we pass our city budget on their particular topic that could improve the community. So for example, before this last budget, the Citizen Conservation Board presented to the commission they get to do 3 to 5 proposals for us to consider. 3 of those got included in the budget. That's really good and really great effectiveness in terms of being able to act on recommendations. And I think that is one of the areas that I feel passionately about, is that if we are asking citizens to take time out of their day to participate in advisory boards, we should make sure that what they recommend can be implemented by the commission and tracked in a responsible way. It doesn't make a lot of difference if we get recommendations right after we pass the budget and we can't budget for them at all. And so I think that being able to improve the effectiveness by having all of those recommendations to us before budget season only makes the community better and only makes those citizen advisory boards more effective. I do think that we could probably find additional ways to help provide professional development and help them become even greater experts in those areas. But again, I think that the fact that we can make decisions now, whereas we couldn't in the past based on those recommendations prior to the budget, is very important.
Andy, do you 2 minutes?
Yeah, thank you very much. And so the city has reduced the effectiveness of these city boards. I think we've increased the consistency of them with streamlined as well as consistent bylaws across the board. I actually, before I got on the city commission, I was the head of the Tax Increment Finance Board. I enjoyed that work, and I appreciated working with the city staff. When I got on the commission, I was assigned to the Board of Adjustments, and those meetings at times went over 3 hours. When you work a day job and you have to travel and you have a family and et cetera, it makes it difficult. So I appreciate the work streamlining, but I do think there needs to be work in engaging these organizations, whether it's the Helena Citizens Council, the Conservation Board, the Board of Adjustment, et cetera. I think we need to have more engagement, because I appreciate when people show up. We have over 30 boards, and we love when people participate and offer their time and their talent. However, sometimes it feels, when I talk to members, they feel like they're not being heard. We've seen it at the AARP survey, or when we go to city commission meetings and people feel like, well, we did all this work and we're not hearing about it at the commission meeting. We're not hearing about it. You guys don't talk about our recommendations unless it's budget season. But I think there's ways that we can continue improving that system, and I appreciate the work that's gone into that. And again, I really appreciate the folks who participate, because thank you, it's important that you show up, offer that expertise, the time, and your talents. And I enjoyed working on these boards, and I enjoy getting to hear from folks that work on those boards. And I think there's always room for improvement.
Emily, back to you for a minute.
Yeah, so something that's interesting is we have kind of 2 case studies right now in Montana of how to make city advisory boards more effective. We have Helena and we have Bozeman. What Bozeman did was essentially, well, not essentially, they did eliminate all of their citizen advisory boards and create one super board. In Helena, we said, well, we have 30-some boards. Let's actually figure out how to make them more consistent in terms of bylaws, minutes, agendas, and produce outcomes that are more effective for the community. What we're finding from our partners across the state is that the way that we are pursuing this efficiency and effectiveness campaign in terms of advisory boards is that it's working a little bit better than Bozeman. Folks in Bozeman are still not very happy about their super board. And so we really are, I mean, it sometimes is very painful to have changes in the way we operate, but we are leading the state in terms of how to make boards more effective and consistent and produce
That's time.
outcomes with the budget.
Can you rank how Helena is operating as a city on a scale of 1 to 5? What's the first thing you do if elected to bring up that ranking? Andy?
What is 1 and what is 5 is my question to you. 5 stars, absolutely. I'm proud. I've lived all across the state. Like it was said, I was born in Butte. I was adopted at a young age, and I grew up in Kalispell. I ended up going to school in Missoula. I ended up moving to Billings, and then I moved here about 16 years ago. Met my wife here, and she went to MSU, so that's fine. But I've lived all across the state, and when I moved here 16 years ago, I feel like I found my people. I feel like I found my town, and this is where I want to spend the rest of my life. And that's why I've invested in this community, and I give it 5 stars. And as mayor, I would do everything I can to continue that. And I think it's not just something that you start when we run for office or when you take office. I think it's important that we do it from day one, and it's incumbent upon all of us to invest in our community and to show up for each other, to attend events like you're all doing tonight, and I applaud Helena for being a part of this, because this is something we're not seeing in many places, that people are able to have a civil conversation about the topics that you care about. And that's something that I fell in love with this community, and I want to continue doing that as mayor of Helena.
Effectiveness, I am a former teacher, and so it makes me want to think about what kind of rubric would I develop and rate each of the items: infrastructure, city operations, streets. But I would probably put us around like a 4. We have a really great thing happening in Helena. We live in such an exceptional community, and I'm so excited to be able to raise my kids here and be the 3rd generation of our family to really call this place home. But there are areas of improvement, and I think there are a lot of ways that we have experienced some significant growing pains over the last 5, 6, 7 years that I don't think we would have foreseen 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. And so I think at the city, we need to be thinking hard about how do we make decisions in the next 4, 5, 6 years that create the community that we really want for our families, for our friends in the next 20, 30, 40 years. We are in the middle right now at the city of completing some pretty significant planning documents. One is the land use plan. I'm sure a number of you here have gone to the open houses and participated. That land use plan sets the vision for what development in Helena looks like for the next 20 years. That is a big, big deal. We also are starting the long-range transportation plan. That sets our transportation policy for the next 20 years, and it's very hard to get changes once those plans are set. So that means that we need a mayor that understands what's in those plans and how to get results for the community that mean we have generational change and can maintain all of the things that make Helena special while also moving us forward in the next 20 years.
Andy, do you?
You bet. One of the things I think we need to work on is to be more effective. And like I said, I love this community. I give it 5 stars. As a city government, I think we need to do better with our partnerships. And I think we need to work closer with our partners. I've heard constantly from our partners that say they feel like they're not being heard. They feel like there's this frustration coming from, and I won't name names, but it's just the conversations I've had with folks feel like they're not being heard or involved or engaged as much as they should. And that's something I won't just work on as mayor. It's something I've done since day one of being on the city commission, is reaching out to you, working with partners across the city in various ways, and looking for ways that we can have engagement, as well as maybe some partnerships or memorandums of understanding with organizations when we talk about topics, whether it's like small businesses. I think there's a way that we can work with the Chamber and MBAC to create a position or cost share a position with them.
That's time.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've gotten through the questions that we've prepared, and we're on to the audience questions now. So these are a mix of ones we had pretty good response on Montana Free Press website with ones people have submitted. We've got ones from the audience we'll mix in. So each of you will get a minute to respond. Emily, you'll go first. The first question that was submitted online through us is from someone who says that they expect the unhoused population in Helena to increase in the coming years, and wants to know how you think we can help that population. So I would say what the city commission and mayor can do specifically to help that population. And Emily, a minute to you.
Sure. There are a lot of things that we can do. One of the things that is difficult is that we do not have a direct line of funding for social services. So the way that the city can really lean in being supportive of those who are unhoused is, one, being a convener, getting all of our partners in a place where we are not having duplicative services, and we're addressing issues that are coming up. So I think a really good example is that Helena Housing Authority right now is going through a thing called repositioning, which means they will now be able to build, for the first time since the 1980s, new housing units. The city needs to be at the table and a partner to ensure that we are getting those new units built, we're getting folks into them, and we're addressing housing as a continuum. So once you are moving people from emergency shelters into permanent housing, that opens more availability for folks to be supported that need it.
Andy, to you for 1 minute.
You bet. I recognize that we've got an unhoused population, that our friends and our neighbors are struggling to find housing. And we've seen in a recent point-in-time survey that I participated in down at God's Love, there's 191 people that they were actually able to reach that are experiencing some sort of homelessness or unsheltered. And that's down from the previous year. However, Helena Public Schools just surveyed that said that 253 students, that's an increase from last year of 43 students, are experiencing some sort of homelessness. The weather is turning. We're seeing the snow. We've got groups like the United Way, St. Peter's Health that are doing the FUSE program, Helena Housing Authority. The Helena Community Foundation just received funding from the city that will be to the tune of $100,000 to tackle this issue. Just like Commissioner Reed said, we can't let somebody freeze on our streets, and I'm committed to that. I believe that our police department's done a fair job, and they're doing better of working with this community and being responsive.
Our next public submitted comment or question. Would you support a bond to fund citywide sidewalks? And Andy, this one's for you.
So I'm proud of the sidewalk improvement plan that we've got, or the sidewalk loan program that we have, and the increase in funding there. When it comes to a bond, you know, I think that's a conversation that we need to have. We've done it for a fire department. We've done it for other items. And I think it's a $50 million problem. We've got a $30 million backlog of sidewalks and a $20 million need to maintain the sidewalks that we do have. We need to be creative in this. And I think one of the ways to do that is potentially through a SID, a special improvement district, or a sidewalk improvement district. That's a way that we could fund that. I think there's other creative ways. Not just the one I have. I think that there's other ways that we can learn from you or other communities on how they do this. And to answer your question, I believe I would be available for that. I would support that.
I could spend way more than a minute on this question, but sidewalks, our amount of sidewalks that need to be improved, so sidewalks that exist and have slip, trip, and fall hazards, or no sidewalks at all, is actually closer to $100 million. And that is a big deal. That's our entire annual budget at the city. One of the ways that I think that we can be really creative is by, rather than looking at an entire city bond, really prioritizing areas of a town to bond through a special improvement district. So not every neighborhood is the same. There are some neighborhoods that will need an entire sidewalk installation district, which means all new sidewalks need to be completed. There are other parts of town that only need sidewalks to be improved. So ADA ramps, slip, trip, and fall hazards. I think we can think about this in areas of town so that you are really doing it in a thoughtful manner.
So this question is very near and dear to my heart, and I promise it is not directly from my toddler, but from the children of Helena. When will the blue slide at Pioneer Park be fixed? There's a giant hole at the bottom of the slide, and the fix has been to put plywood over the top. Emily, 1 minute to you.
Yes, so I talked about in one of my earlier answers that it's really important to budget for projects year over year so that you don't have a situation where there's a broken slide and you can't fix it. From what I understand, there is a new playground system that is in the budget for next year. I think it's close to $300,000, which is why it takes a little while to plan for. And I hope that we later on maybe get to talk about a parks bond because our 2028 GO bond is expiring, our GO general obligation parks bond. That means that the funding that we've been using to fund parks infrastructure is expiring. I think we have a really cool opportunity to start thinking about what it means to partner with the county, with a parks district, so that we are able to fund parks more holistically across our community because, let's be honest, when you're walking on a trail and you pass from the city of Helena to Lewis and Clark County, do you really know where that line is?
Time.
Probably not.
Awesome. Andy, do you 1 minute?
You bet. My answer is right now. After this, I'm going to need some help to go fix that slide down at Pioneer Park. And I appreciate having, and not to make light of it, but I do appreciate the questions from children because I think they're the future and I love seeing young people involved. We've got some incredible parks. We just invested in the Memorial Park playground. I think that's excellent. We need to look at how we connect our fairgrounds and the ballparks on that side of town, the trails, finishing the bridge that goes over Henderson, completing the trail down to Centennial Park and Memorial Park, tying into the potential overpass and underpass on Montana Avenue, and then connecting over from there to the 6th Ward all the way to East Helena and beyond. I think we've done our parks are one of our best economic developers, whether it's our trails and parks and our open spaces, and we need to continue investing in those, especially for young families.
Our next question is, what concrete and tangible steps will you take to enhance the ability of Helenans to safely get around on muscle-powered transportation, like cycling and walking?
This is another great question as well. I served on the the NEMTEC group, the Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council. I served on that as a city commissioner, and where the meetings went 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours discussing ideas for walkability and bikeability. Unfortunately, that committee was dissolved. I was one of the only 2 commissioners to vote against dissolving that. I think having those voices at the table are important. I know we do have a seat on the Metropolitan Planning Organization for non-transportation. I do believe that we need to reconsider possibly bringing that advisory board back. Because we've got, whether it's the passenger rail, whether it's scooters, or whether it's walkability, bikeability, I think that's something that we need to consider. Because with whether you have a new family or you're aging, those things are important to folks.
Sure. So I really think that we need to think about multimodal transportation, walking, biking, pushing a stroller, as not just a separate part of how people get around, but really integrated in how we get around. I don't think it's helpful to anyone when we think about transportation as only car focused. So it is one of those things when we think about how we're improving our entire system, it shouldn't be that sidewalks and bike lanes are something that we just hold to the side for later on. It's something that we can integrate in our planning. I serve as chair of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a new entity that is required to plan for transportation in Helena. And the Long Range Transportation Plan is going to be our first opportunity to ensure that multimodal transportation, biking, walking, is included in all of the funding decisions that we make moving forward for transportation.
Our next question submitted from the audience kind of follows along the theme we've had of transportation. We had someone submit a question of how would you improve the city bus system? And Emily, to you for 1 minute. And also if the audience could keep the chatter down a little bit, that'd be great.
So the city a couple years ago moved to what's called an on-demand system, and that means that when you call for a ride, and it's app-based or you can call, and it will pick you up at your home and bring you directly to you are. That's different than what we used to have as a fixed route system. This on-demand system has meant that we have now more than double the ridership than we had before. And that means that we need more drivers so we can provide more rides. So one of the things that I would like to advocate for is funding additional FTE for drivers so that we can meet the demands of the community, particularly because we are a largely retired community. It's harder for people to get around if you don't have consistent transportation. And so I think being able to fund more drivers is important. I also would like us to start thinking about what it would look like to work with City of East Helena and the county to provide routes
That's
into
our time.
the city.
Andy, do you?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we hear constantly from folks, why don't we have fixed routes? And yes, you hear ridership is increased when it comes to curb to curb, but I do think there's opportunity to do fixed routes, whether it is from St. Peter's Health over to the VA, from Helena High to Helena Capitol. I think whether it's from when we pass the passenger rail, when that finally gets passed, to the new museum, to downtown and back again, I think that would be a fixed route that we could look at as well. Drivers are an issue. We don't have enough, and that was the conversation I had with our transportation department, is that we don't have enough drivers. And one of the things is you have to have a CDL license. I believe that there could be a partnership with Helena College, which does do that training. But the thing is if the person's hired and they don't have a CDL license, the city has to train them for several months to be able to get that license. And I think there's a reluctancy to hire people that don't have that license.
Thank you. Next question. What one specific improvement will you make to Helena during your term that people say can never happen in Helena?
Well, I think we need to improve our communication and rebuild our partnerships. That's something I've tried to do since day one. That's all I have. Yeah, I think that's something that we could look at.
Something that they don't think can get done? I'm going to answer with where I started, Montana Avenue Rail Crossing. This has been literally my entire life, all 34 years. This has been an issue. My grandma used to take me to Buttrey's every single day, which is now the gym, and it has always been an issue. BNSF is only making trains longer. The waits are only causing more issues, and so I am very much committed to completing this project. It's going to take a lot of doggedness, especially in terms of making sure our funding continues, but I feel very strongly that we can do it if we are constantly remaining at the table and getting this project going.
Okay, our next question from the audience is, what is your vision for handling and planning for the future growth of Helena? And Emily, to you to start for 1 minute.
Sure. So I am going to maybe come at this from a different perspective. We have our land use plan that is close to adoption. It is coming to the City Commission in the next month. This is a document that has been truly robust in terms of community participation and folks really providing great input. And that means then we start with some of our zoning reform and the rest. One of the things that I don't think that we have probably spent enough time on is our joint infrastructure planning with the county. We know that there is going to be a demand for annexation in the North Valley. Right now, there is an exempt well crisis in our state. And it means that there are too many wells with septics that are going dry and risk the contamination of our groundwater. We are going to have to be able to find a way to work with the county when folks start having wells go dry or their water contaminated. So that
That's our time.
Okay.
Andy?
Over the last 2 years, the city of Helena has been driving what is known as Helena Forward. It is our land use plan. It was obligated by the state of Montana under the Montana Land Use Planning Act. I've participated in almost every meeting, whether it was public or DIY meeting. We had one down at 10 Mile where we had 4 people. We had one where the Helena Citizens Council ran it over at the Civic Center. We also had one where our contractors brought in hundreds of people that cycled through that evening to give their input. I think that it's great to be able to build a plan, figure out our priorities, but figuring out how much it's going to cost. However, what's most important is the action. We need to get stuff done for Helena. Yes, we've got great plans. Yes, we've got some good priorities, but we need to get stuff done for Helena. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Our next audience question, where is Chick-fil-A? Why hasn't it opened? Andy.
Thank you very much for that question. Our fire chief always tells people if they ask, oh, what's that new building? No matter if it's a big warehouse or it's somebody's home or it's a kiosk, he'll say, oh, that's the new Chick-fil-A. And I've taken that joke myself, and my wife was like, are you serious? Oh, you jerk, and gives me a hit. No, we are working with them. They're going through the process. We just voted to approve access to new water main. I think that Helena, but we need to be a city where folks want to start a business, folks want to live, or bring a business and reinvest, as well as expand their business. And that's something I'm committed to as mayor, is when I talk about being a champion for the community and being an ambassador, that's what it is that whether you're, say, Boeing, or let's say you're Deer Potato downtown, we need to have small businesses as well as medium-sized and large businesses that feel that Helena's ready.
That's time. Emily, to you for a minute.
I think you've heard it is coming. And we did approve the vacation of an easement just a couple weeks ago. One of the things that I do think it underscores, and it's something that we've been working on at the city, is improving the way that we do development, that permits are received. One of the ways that I think that we really could improve is that every time we have a project that comes to completion, is that we have an after-action report with the developer, with the business owner, and with our city departments. That will give us the opportunity to really figure out where things are going right and where things are going on. A great example is the Twin Creek Apartments that are the new low-income housing and mixed-income housing above Lithia Tire. That was done in 1 year, and Seth O'Connell, who was doing it, told me that it was the fastest development and easiest process that they'd ever gone through. Let's have an after-action report to figure out why it went so well so that we can replicate that.
Okay, and as much as I would love for that to be our last question, we have one more audience one before we move to closing statements. Emily, this will go to you first with 1 minute. What would you say is the biggest difference between you and your opponent?
That's a great question. You know, I actually probably known Andy since I was a junior in high school, and he was the best man in my cousin's wedding. And this is Montana, so we all know each other. And we definitely have differences in how we approach things. What I would say is that from my perspective, I'm someone who wants to understand the details of a policy before I make a decision on the behalf of 35,000 people. I do not take anything lightly at the City Commission, whether it is a sidewalk variance, a release of an easement. you have to understand how the city functions in order to get results for people. And I have worked very hard over the last 5 years to become an expert in as many topics as possible so that every time I go to take a vote, I am making a decision that will do the most good for the most people in Helena. And I think that is really what has served me best over the last 5 years.
Andy, to you for a minute.
Yes, I have nothing but respect for Emily. I think she's done a fine job. And I think we've worked well together, just bringing different ways of doing things. And in terms of difference, I've sought out the advice of whether it's our directors, whether it's our city manager, but I rely heavily on working and listening and hearing from you. It's more than just balance sheets or agendas and meetings. It's listening to you. And that's what our job is as commissioners and as mayor, is to be the legislative body, to be your representative on the commission and to do our homework and to understand the process. And I think the main difference is, she and Matt just started a family. I've been married for 5 years. We have she's done education, I've done economic development as well as executive experience. That's, I think, the key difference. But I think having 5 different commissioners, I think, is really healthy, and it's been good for our community.
Thank you both for your answers to our questions. We're going to go into closing statements now. Emily, you won the coin toss. You chose to go last. So Andy, to you, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
So thank you very much, Helena, for being here. Thank you, Montana Free Press, and for others for being here tonight. And thank you, Brothers Tapworks, for hosting us again this week. I'm running for mayor because I love our town, and I can tell you love it too. I can see by the number of people that are here tonight and that have been throughout the numerous forums that we've had over the last couple of weeks and months. I can hear it when I go to a Live at 5 or to the Symphony. And when I talk with folks in our community who want to share their ideas and questions, I can feel it when I can feel the excitement that people have and the hope for the future. For a new mayor, a new commission, and now a new city manager, I believe that Helena needs a leader that has vision, a leader that has real-world experience leading organizations, whether it's my day job or if it's being on the Helena Farmers Market, MBAC, the Red Cross, or being on the advisory board for the Helena College. Someone who has a proven history of collaboration, is not afraid to listen to staff, but willing to listen to others, seek guidance, and rely on partnerships. Someone who's not afraid to seek new ideas from the public and address people's concerns directly. And I'm not afraid to say yes. And I think Helena's ready to say yes. I'm excited about our community, and I'm excited about our future. I believe we're in a good position. But we must shift our attitude and our culture coming from the top down, and that, as mayor, I intend to do that. Yes, we've got some great challenges that face us, and we need a mayor that wants to work with you and someone who doesn't have all the answers, but knows how to bring people together, build coalitions, and get things done for our community. I'm Andy Shirtliff, and I hope I can count on your vote for Helena's next mayor. Thank you.
Emily, 2 minutes to you.
Thank you. Well, first, I want to thank Montana Free Press and Brothers Tapworks for hosting, and all of you for being here tonight. I'm the 3rd generation of our family to call Helena home, and it's a place that I am so proud to be building my family here with my husband, Matt. I've served on the City Commission for the past 5 years and as Mayor Pro Tem. And over that time, I've worked to make city government more transparent, strengthen our public services, and really bring people together to solve really difficult problems. My dedication to this community is very personal. I live 5 blocks from the only house my grandparents ever owned. Matt and I will be raising our kids 8 blocks from where my mom is. And the passion that I bring to this work is truly rooted in how to make the city work better for Helena. In my work as an educator, I see every day how policies on paper really play out in folks' everyday life. And I believe that the challenges that we're facing demand a clear vision, strong leadership, and just a perspective that can bring all of the diverse perspectives in our community together to get results, finding a path forward so that we can move Helena in a positive direction. Helena has truly, and I've mentioned this, we've reached a very pivotal time. The decisions we make in the next 3, 4, 5 years are going to determine what the next half century of Helena looks like. And I do not take that lightly. As your mayor, I'm going to be focusing on the things that will make our future brighter. I'm going to be someone who will always fight for a vibrant community where kids can play, retired folks can age in place, and hopefully bring a new generation of leadership that can preserve the things that make Helena special and make a bright future for everyone. I'm so grateful that you all came tonight, and if you have more questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you both for coming and for sticking through and answering all of our questions tonight. Want to remind everybody in the audience, if you are not registered to vote, you can still register to do that. So head down to the City County building. You can get some help with that. Reminder, general election is Tuesday, November 4th. Ballots will be mailed out this Friday. They should be reaching you soon. Election staff say that you want to mail those back no later than Tuesday, October 28th to make sure they get back in time to be counted. You can also always drop them off at the elections office. That's on the first floor of the City County building, just up the street from us. If you need to know more about these candidates, check out Jovan's excellent reporting on them at montanafreepress.org. She's also got a newsletter, Helena This Week, that has tons of good information if you need anything more about Helena. So thanks everybody for coming. That's it.